Welcome to the Michelle Rempel-Garner podcast.
Hello, fellow patriots. Well, we started a big debate this week, and joining me to discuss what that debate was, why it's important to you, and why we decided to wade into this topic is veteran conservative strategist, my chief of staff, Sean Schnell. Sean, we decided to talk about automatic citizenship for temporary residents in Canada this week.
Yeah,
Big
this is a
topic.
big topic. Made a lot of news, and there's a lot of people talking about it. And maybe the best place for us to start is you rose up in the House and pointed the question right across the aisle at the Liberals to ask them what are they going to do about this. And I've got that clip. Maybe we'll start with
Yeah,
that.
let's listen to that.
A decade of Liberal immigration failure, we need to restore order and fairness to the system. And today there are over 3 million temporary residents in Canada, an unprecedented 7.2% of Canada's population. Wow. There's no plan to get them to leave, and this is straining housing, healthcare, and jobs. Now some temporary residents are exploiting Canada's outdated automatic citizenship rules to try and overstay their visas. Will the minister align with most other countries in the world and require at least one parent to be a citizen or permanent resident to qualify for automatic citizenship?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada's legislation is clear. Since the end of World War II, if you were born in Canada, you are a Canadian citizen. This government will continue to support a fair and constitutional citizenship framework.
The problem is, for the first time in Canadian history, we have over 3 million temporary residents in the country, and the Liberals are still issuing record level of more temporary resident permits. So now you combine that with the Liberals' broken humanitarian claims system, a protracted appeal system, and their reluctance to deport. What's happening is that most temporary residents effectively stay here indefinitely. Fairness must be restored. Will the minister update our outdated laws and require at least one parent to be a citizen or permanent resident to qualify for automatic citizenship?
The Honourable.
Yeah, so big debate.
Yeah. So I know you broke all of this down on your Substack. I'll actually just put up a quick screenshot of that here. So, and we'll probably talk about that a couple of times here this morning. Is just like, make sure you go out and read this Substack. If you're not subscribed already, subscribe.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the video description.
Best way to get this info, and you do like a full breakdown there. But maybe for those that are not familiar with this topic, do you want to just explain what are you talking about when you are talking about this automatic citizenship, how Canada is different from these other countries that you were mentioning in your question there? Maybe break it down for listeners.
Sure. So Canada is an outlier in the world in that in order to become a Canadian citizen, if you are born on Canadian soil, you're automatically a Canadian citizen. And it doesn't matter if your parents are permanent residents or citizens themselves. This is not how it works in most of the rest of the world. Certainly other peer countries like the UK, Australia, Germany, there's many other countries in the world where in order for somebody who's born in a country to get that citizenship, at least one of their parents has to be either a permanent resident or a citizen of the country. And so this is, you heard the minister sort of give this outdated response. She's like, well, since World War II, it's been this way. But the thing is, Sean, is that our country has changed a lot after a decade of failed Liberal policies. So we have this problem now where, and it's not the fault of people who came to Canada under this program, but it is the fault of the Liberals. They allowed 3 million, there's now 3 million temporary residents in the country, comprising, as I said in that clip, over 7% of Canada's total population. And that is unprecedented. It's never happened before. So now the country has an issue. The Liberals have a problem because those permits are set to expire and people are looking for ways to stay in the country, while at the same time, the Liberals don't really have a plan to get them to leave. So we have seen on social media We've heard lawyers talk about this. There's reports that these temporary residents are being told or advised or are just having children in order to make humanitarian and compassionate claims based on their child's citizenship in order to stay in the country. And that's not what automatic citizenship was designed to do. So what you're seeing here is the potential for a massive abuse of Canada's immigration system, the humanitarian and compassionate system. And also, frankly, the Liberals did not account for this type of population growth in their levels plan. When somebody is invited to Canada on a temporary resident permit, they are a temporary resident. They're not here to stay
Right.
permanently. But the Liberals have, in bringing in so many people so fast, and then not thinking about what the downstream effects would be on healthcare, housing, and jobs, it's not fair to anybody. And so for me now, there are, Sean, there are hospitals, for example, that are now charging temporary residents to have babies in their facilities because of a spike. The government doesn't even measure this statistic.
Hmm.
And so to me, we have to end, like, it doesn't work anymore. We can't, in order for somebody who is born in Canada to have Canadian citizenship, they should have a tie to the country by one of their parents either being a permanent resident or a citizen. And that is the rule in most of the rest of the world. Um, this would have been a very taboo topic 10 years ago, but the reality is we did not have 3 million temporary residents in the country 10 years ago. We didn't have an asylum claim backlog of 300,000 people 10 years ago. We didn't have 500,000 undocumented people in the country 10 years ago, but now we do. So we have
Right.
to update, we have to make, what I'm trying to say is tinkering around the edges of the immigration system is not going to address the challenges that the Liberals have brought into the immigration system. We need big changes and big public policy debates. And that's why I put this position forward via an amendment to a Liberal bill that would have further watered down and Canadian citizenship, how you can pass Canadian citizenship law. This is Bill C3 that we've been actively opposing. And it was, the best way I could think of to start a cogent, solid debate on the value of Canadian citizenship and also how to address some of the challenges of the Liberals bringing in 3 million temporary residents without a plan for them to leave, right?
Yeah.
So, these are tough issues. They're uncomfortable issues for a lot of Canadians. But if we're going to maintain the sanctity of Canada's pluralism, the value of Canadian citizenship, we have to have these debates. And so here we are.
Yeah, so a couple of things there that's interesting. You're talking about this being maybe an uncomfortable discussion, but a necessary one. And I think that a lot of Canadians would be perhaps surprised or hearing some of this maybe even for the first time. I don't know that it's been a topic that has received a lot of coverage in recent years. And so I think that is part of the interesting part of the discussion here as well, is Canadians hearing just how much the Liberals have damaged the Canadian immigration system and how much needs to be talked about. And so you talked about in there, and I don't want it to be missed. So it's not only just identifying the issue, but the proposal, the actual solution that you were proposing
Yes.
that was a fix to this. So do you want to just talk about that, and then maybe we can talk about the response a little bit to
Yeah.
the plan that you actually put out?
Sure. So I didn't just rise and ask a question in the House of Commons. What I did was we had Bill C3. This is a bill that the Liberals have put forward in response to a court ruling that they didn't appeal the decision that would allow anybody, essentially, too long didn't read it. Anybody who has citizenship, who has children abroad, they can pass that citizenship down indefinitely with very minimal, almost no residency requirements. There was no requirement for a language test, a citizenship test, a security screening. I did pass amendments to the bill on that. I think the NDP will probably seek to gut the bill because, the Liberals and them have this, very post-national view on what Canadian citizenship is, which is, I think, devalued. They have this devalued view of it. I digress. So what I did was, as part of the amending process of that bill, was I put forward an amendment to change how people are granted citizenship if they are born in Canada. And right now, as you mentioned, a lot of people might not be aware, anybody born in Canada, like people could even be visitors. They don't even have to be here as temporary residents.
Right.
And that citizenship is still given to somebody born in Canada. What I'm saying is, let's pump the brakes here. We have 3 million temporary residents in the country right now. At least one of the parents of somebody who wants Canadians or is being granted Canadian citizenship should be a permanent resident or a citizen. And I put that amendment forward. It didn't pass, but it sparked a big debate. And I think the response was, it was good. I think, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I was going to say let's look at. I've got some of the screenshots of some of the response in the media, and we can talk a little bit about that, and then just some of there's just the anecdotal response that has been seen here. So let me pull up one of the articles here. So this is from the National Post, and the headline reads, "Birthright citizenship is an outdated concept," and so that is one of the responses here, and I'll also pull up here. It includes some quotes. So in the article, it references what you were talking about there in some of the hospitals, that the response that they're seeing to an increase or a spike in these non-resident births, and then also just your quotes highlighting that this would bring us more in line with other countries, including Australia, Germany, United Kingdom. But basically, they're saying you could go on and on. There's a lot more countries than even that. I also have, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, a very reasonable response. And it wasn't just the National Post that was taking this position, although there were other columnists too. We'll get to that. But it was also the Globe and Mail. So we had Robin Urbach in the Globe and Mail.
I've got her article here. So
Go ahead.
It reads, "The Conservatives are right. Canada should end birthright citizenship," is the headline.
So that's pretty, I mean, it's the Globe and Mail. And Robin wrote a piece that just reinforced some of the arguments that I was making. And again, like, at the end of the day, if the goal is to protect the value of Canadian citizenship, to restore order and fairness to the immigration system, in the context of 3 million temporary residents that the Liberals brought in a very short period of time, this is a reasonable change. And there were a couple of other columns too, right?
Yeah, I've got another one here. This one also from the National Post. Headline reads, "Canada doesn't owe the world's children a passport."
Like, it's a spicy take, but I mean, we have to have these public policy debates. We have to, right? We have to. Somebody wrote that, didn't they?
Yeah, I've got actually a screenshot from on X here. There was
David
a message
McLaughlin.
here. Yeah, "We need this debate in Canada. It will forge a more durable immigration consensus than we have now. Yet we need to maintain social cohesion in the country, build economic prosperity." Good on Michelle Rempel for bringing this forward.
Yeah, and David's a senior politico that, has kind of walked between the two political axes in Canada. So, like, again,
So
don't.
let me ask you that question. So and again, without going too far down the rabbit hole, is like this is the job of the
This is
opposition,
the
is
job.
to both hold the
Yes.
government accountable, but also propose solutions. And so here we're seeing a lot of positive response, but when the Liberals and others sort of throw up their hands, and like the minister is sort of saying, just like you said, this outdated response of, wow, just like what are we even talking about here? Why is that the response? Why is it that they are so afraid of having this debate or discussion about the immigration system in the country?
Well, for a lot of reasons. Um, I'm going to be as bold as to say this is going to be public policy within the next few years. They're going to have to do this. Um, the immigration system is so fundamentally broken that without bold change, it will continue to break further. And the reason why this policy is so important is that Canada's system of automatic citizenship, even for children of visitors or temporary residents is a pull to the country for people to come and try to stay. They might be economic migrants, but they're gonna, there are anecdotal and there are stories of people making humanitarian compassionate claims or asylum claims or whatever, because the appeals process, the time it takes to process these applications are so long that this is Canada's system of granting citizenship automatically to children of temporary residents and visitors. It becomes a draw into the country to abuse the system. It does. Like, I know people don't want to hear that, but it's true. And so when you're looking at fixing the system, you have to you have to also remove the the incentive structure for people to continue to abuse the system. And again, I don't blame somebody for wanting to come to Canada to build a better life, but there has to be order and fairness in the immigration system in order for the public, the Canadian public, to continue to accept immigration. And so for me, I look at this as an opposition member. This particular policy is saying, look, there's all this data, Sean, showing that the consensus for immigration in Canada has broken down, right? And some people are interpreting that as like Canadians have just lost all hope for immigration. I actually think it's more precise than that. I think
Hmm.
people are angry at the Liberal government for breaking the immigration system. And so if that's the sentiment, then you can restore public confidence in the system if you make substantive changes that restore order and fairness and reduce the levels to a point where housing, healthcare, and jobs can keep up. Now, that level right now has to be very, very, very low, right? Because of the amount of temporary residents the Liberals have brought into the country, and they do not have a
Right.
plan to get them to leave. But at the same time, like just tinkering around the edges of levels is not going to fix some of the systemic issues that the Liberals have created, which cause the system to be abused and cause people to lose faith in the in the system working at all. So, that's the heart in which I think we're approaching. I know we're approaching these policies. We have more ideas in the can. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
But like the system is so broken that if we want to protect Canada's pluralism, we have to have big debates over w- issues that have been taboo in the past, but now are like it's imperative to discuss them, right?
Well, and I think that brings it back to the point that this is literally the job of members of parliament and the government to be addressing this. And so we see you and the Conservatives that are putting out fact-based analysis of here's our current situation, here where we see us going, here are the solutions that we need in order to fix that. But yet you see the Liberals that are just really almost dismissive, I think is the word that I would use. And the reality is that we are already seeing, like you said, the pressures on housing, healthcare, and jobs, and that is it without taking into consideration the Liberals' lack of leadership to actually make any change in course on public policy to address what we see as this continuing pressure down the road. And I just want to put up here, just so that people don't think I'm just being hyper partisan for no reason. Here's the response that we see from the Liberals.
Right.
So here you've got ruins every portfolio he touches, Justice Minister Sean Fraser. The headline is Justice Minister rebuffs Tory push to end birthright citizenship. And so here I'll throw up here. You had your response here to that article that people can go and read. But then also in the Toronto Star, you've got, here's the quote, another former immigration minister, Liberal MP Mark Miller, also dismissed the proposal. He says, if you're born here, you have a connection here, you have a right to be here. I think that's pretty fundamental principle, he said of the Liberal caucus. But what I would note, and I think people would be interested in hearing what you have to say about this, is where the Conservatives and you are coming at this with facts and saying, look, here are the numbers, here are the issues,
Yeah.
here are the problems that we are seeing, here's a solution to the problem that we see. They are not defending a position from any sort of standpoint of here's statistics, here's our policy, here's our plan. It's literally just like, there's no problem, like this is not something we want to talk about. It's very dismissive. And
I
why
think we
is
caught
that?
the I think we caught them with their pants down on this issue. I do not, well, I can say for a fact they don't have a strategy to change the immigration system.
Mm.
If they did, we would have been seeing them starting to roll out uh, some good public policy, and we haven't. So it's my job to force them into that position. Like Miller's comments there, as Fraser, it was very knee jerk, and it wasn't cogent, to your point. It didn't rebut any of the positions that we put forward that were well received by the public. And I think too, what's interesting on like when we look at data on how the consensus for Canada's the immigration consensus in Canada has been breaking down, when we look at exactly how and why that's happening, it's because people know that they're tired of the Liberals responding to any criticism about the failures in the process of the immigration system, the lack of fairness in the immigration system, with like, well, you're racist, or well, we can't do that because we can't do that. Well, the system is broken, so we have to fix it. And we can't fix it just by doing the same old stuff with the same old argument that they've had for the last 10 years. So I think that's why people are not responding to the Liberals. And I think the Liberals now, they're on shifting grounds. You'll notice that they didn't they push back a little bit. And Mark Miller, I think, you know, I think he's probably bitter that he got punted from the immigration minister portfolio. He's not in cabinet right now. I'm not even sure his comments are sanctioned by his party, and they don't have a cohesive message on this issue, right?
Yeah, well,
So
and I'll
it's going to be
notice,
interesting
like,
to see where it goes. Like,
I thought it was interesting, again, like, we don't see the immigration minister, Diab, out anywhere, talking about
no,
this,
they don't put her
and
out because she's
yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, so
Look,
that's a
she's not
concern.
long for this job. She's going to get shuffled out. I would be like, I mean, she she has to get shuffled out. Like, how can Mark Carney, like, partisan hat off for a second? He's got a background in business, right? Like, how can he look at someone who's performing like that on such a critical file and keep her in the job? She's not long for the world of cabinet. So they're not putting her out. But
Yeah.
like, there's a vacuum there that needs to be filled by smart public policy, by people who care about Canada's pluralism, our capacity to ensure that when somebody comes to the country, that's fair for everybody, that there's enough housing, healthcare, and jobs to support integration. And so we're offering that. That's what's on offer. That's what I'm doing. And like Sean, we've got to swing big on some of these issues. It's not just immigration. It's, crime, the economy, just continuing with 10 years of Liberal failed policies that are just slightly tweaked or have a new face on it because of Mark Carney. Like, that's not going to solve the big problems that our country is facing. So here was a big solution to a big problem. I think, maybe when we look back in the archives of our podcast a few years from now, I think this will become public policy. I think this will become the law of the land. And we'll be the ones who have put it out there. And that is my job as a member of parliament. It's our job as a team. And stay tuned. There's more to come on this file.
No, absolutely. And so I would say in the meantime, again, I'm just going to throw this up for folks that if you're wanting to get into the weeds on this particular issue, go check out Michelle's latest Substack on this. The title of the article is Canada Must Now Place Restrictions on Birthright Citizenship. Here's why. And make sure that you're subscribed for updates on that. And I would encourage people, go talk to your friends and family about this issue. See if they are aware of it and get their perspective on it, because I agree. I think that the landscape is shifting for this sort of policy debate and discussion, and I think that conservatives are, like you said, swinging big on these things because it's necessary. We've got a lot of challenges in the country, and it will take real leadership in order to solve those things. So make sure you are subscribed to Substack.
Yeah.
And I know, Michelle, you've got other stuff to come here, so people want to be subscribed so that they can get those updates right away.
Yes, click auto download. And look, I'll just close with this. You can we can have challenging public policy debates in Canada that are kind, based in fact, based in compassion, but they're challenging, right? Like, these are topics that politicians typically shy away from. But I believe in Canada. I'm long on our country. I have to be. But to belong on our country, we have to not shy away from public policy discussions that are overdue. And this is one of them. So yes, subscribe to this channel. There's more to come. And we're going to keep working hard for you. On that note, have a great day.
Thanks for listening. If you want even more political news, subscribe at michellerempelgarner.substack.com. And if you like what you hear, be sure to share this podcast.